Disclaimer, before you watch this video, I want to make two things clear. One is that I am not encouraging anybody to drop out of school. I don't want you to tell your parents that you dropped out of school because you watched my video. Two is that the title, if the title ends up being what I think it's going to be, is based on my own definition of success, which is included at some point in this video, I think. What's up, guys? Tyler Yasuda here at Titanium Fitness, and if you saw my last video, you're probably a little bit prepared for this video to not be about a whole or entirely to do with like fitness and lifting. I'm sure you can kind of tell by the title of the video what this is going to be about. And without making this too long, oh, before I forget, new shirts, Titanium Strong. Buy a shirt. There's a logo on the back over here somewhere. You can't see it, but it's by my neck. Link to the website down below. I think it was October 2014 or somewhere around there when I officially withdrew from UCLA. I was going to UCLA, I was a third year, or I was coming in as a third year. But basically, on the academic side of things, the deal was that I was a physiology major, which physio is one of the most competitive science majors at UCLA. It's largely pre-med, so it's not just because like you're competing for classes, you're also competing for grades in some sense for a lot of your science classes, where it's not, you know, an A is an A, a B is a B, and so on. It's like a certain percentage of the class gets an A, certain percentage gets a B, and you know, it's like that. And me withdrawing from school, I can't pretend that I did exceptionally well at UCLA. I didn't do as well in terms of grades as I would have liked to, but on one hand, UCLA is just really hard, or at least I think it was hard. Basically, I went from being, you know, ranked 2 or maybe 3 in my high school class to being about average. At least that's the way I felt. And the biggest thing for me, the biggest detriment to my academic career when I was at school was that I committed so much of my time and effort to training. I trained or did something related to bodybuilding for a good probably 2 to 3 hours every single day. And that doesn't sound like a lot of time, but considering like UCLA is a quarter system, so you have 10 weeks to finish a class, and the amount of coursework they give you in that 10 weeks is pretty hefty for a lot of classes. Coming into my third year, that was supposed to be my first year of upper division courses, signing up for classes. I had priority enrollment, and I mean, they tell you to get as many units as you can so you can have priority enrollment. I had first crack at my classes, but even then I couldn't get my first upper division class because I guess there were a lot of seniors ahead of me waiting in line for that class. And I'm a little bit bitter about it still, because it's not like it's anybody's fault, but it's just that I feel like the administration, had they known that there were so many people waiting for that class, the class is sequential, so that means that if you don't get it that first time around, you have to wait a year to start your upper division series. But if the administration has known that there's that long of a wait, they probably shouldn't admit more people into the major, at least in my opinion. But basically my options at that point were that I could wait for an extra year to start my physio upper div stuff, which would mean that I'd be spending a total of 5 years in school, or I could switch majors to like bio or eco-bio. And the reason I couldn't switch to like some other majors, which a lot of the other majors that weren't even interesting to me, but there's a unit cap on most majors at UCLA where you can't exceed a certain number of units in order to graduate. It would have been like maybe 60 more grand to finish 2 more years for like a bio or eco-bio degree, which to me wasn't really worth it. And just in general, the time I was in school, I know part of this is because I focused a lot of my time and effort into bodybuilding. My heart was never really in my studies. Like, yeah, I did well and I tried really hard and I busted my ass, but at the same time, it was very difficult for me to allocate that much of my time and effort to something that to me was not very meaningful. And I'll probably make a video in the future about like being able to work hard for things that you don't necessarily want, because that is an important skill, and I feel like you can't just write something off, or you can't just say you shouldn't work hard at something because you don't like it. So after a lot of consideration, a lot of long conversations with my best friend and with Shauna as well, she was actually very, very important to me at this time in my life, helped me make this decision, or having the, I guess, the courage to be able to do what I was about to do. I decided to withdraw from school, or from UCLA, and I talked to my parents about it. The plan originally was to graduate from Sacramento State, because that's my hometown. I could have lived at home. It would have been very cheap, or much cheaper to graduate from Sac State than it would be from UCLA. And when I called them to talk to their admissions department, they said it would be real simple. I could send my transcript, they'd accept me, I'd enroll for classes the next semester. That's what I did, and it ended up not being that smooth. When I enrolled for classes, they told me I was ineligible because they wanted me to do like 4 more classes before that. So I had to start taking classes at like a community college, essentially. And like the whole situation is kind of shitty because, like, you know, it just seemed like things weren't turning out the way they're supposed to or the way you expect them to, and I guess a lot of things in life work that way. But in the meantime, it was sort of nice because over the course of like the next year, from the time I withdrew to the time wherever, I had a lot of time to allocate toward other stuff, so mainly coaching, right? And in that year, that's basically when my coaching thing kind of took off. I wasn't doing it necessarily full time because I was still taking classes, but I started taking off. I started making quite a bit of money from it, and it got to the point where I thought to myself, maybe there's a chance that I can make a living from this. Never before, I mean, I did the whole coaching thing in school as well to make money on the side, but never before had I thought that it would be a feasible means for me to make a living. But yeah, it got to that point where I was making a good chunk of money, and I did some calculations. I tried to figure out, you know, how much it would cost me to take care of myself, to save some money, to make sure that I was financially okay. And based on my calculations, I'd be cutting real close, but I could make it work. And got to a point where I kind of had to make a choice. I felt like I had to make a choice whether I take this opportunity now to do the coaching thing, or I could finish school. So realistically, and at this point, because the whole thing was delayed, I had to take these extra classes. I probably would have spent, you know, another, let's say, 3 years. I feel like that's a realistic estimate in school. So 3 years later, I could have been, you know, $20,000 or $30,000 in the hole for paying for my degree. And I'd come out with maybe like a kinesiology degree or something like that. 30 grand invested into a kines degree versus 30 grand that I could invest in my own business. It's not even a contest. Like, and honestly, the biggest determining factor for me right then was that I was worried that if I didn't take this opportunity at that time, you know, take a shot at making a living from being a coach, if I didn't take that opportunity, I felt like it might not be there when I got done with school. And if it were not there, if that opportunity didn't exist anymore, I would be kicking myself. I would be so mad that I didn't take that leap of faith when I had the opportunity to. So this was probably one of the hardest times of my life, because I don't mean to be dramatic, but I'm sure you can imagine telling my parents, telling my family that I was leaving school permanently. And this is probably the first time a lot of my family's gonna see this video or know this information. I don't know how my parents are gonna react to this either, but if they do see it. But telling my parents that I intended to drop out of school completely to pursue coaching full time was, I remember that night very distinctly. I'm trying not to be emotional and try not to be irrational, but like, that was a hard night for me because, understandably, I'd run through this situation so many times in my head before, like how it could go or how badly it could go, and it basically went as badly as I would imagine. And to be fair, I think that it's understandable that my parents reacted the way they do. I mean, imagine, we're an Asian family, you know, that's the formula. You go to school, you get perfect grades, you get into a good college, you get perfect grades, you go to grad school, or you go get a career, and you make a bunch of money to take care of your family after that. And your parents, they bust their asses to make sure that they can provide for you to have that opportunity. And then to be, from the perspective of a parent, to know that your kid is not going to take advantage of that opportunity is devastating. So I can somewhat understand the way they feel. But at the same time, like, from my perspective, it was very difficult because, I don't know, it just felt like for the first time in my life, which sounds silly because, you know, I was 21 at the time. I am 21. For the first time in my life, I was kind of on my own. Not necessarily entirely, it's just like I felt like I didn't have the support of, or like, you know, a large part of my support network, whatever you want to call it, that was gone. Not only did they not support what I was doing, they were very strongly against it, at least at first. And thankfully, by now, both of my parents seem to have kind of accepted that I'm doing what I do, and they're pretty okay with it, I think. But that initial time when I had that conversation was very difficult. And even after that, so that was actually August of last year, August 2015 is when I officially left school and started working as a coach full time. And when I first started, I did kind of mess up my calculations about how much money I could make and how much money it would cost me to take care of myself. So I wasn't poor, but I was definitely worried a little bit about how much money I had or didn't have. And there's even a point where coming up into like the Christmas season, I barely had enough money for gifts. And that to me was pretty embarrassing and kind of shameful. I still made enough money to buy those gifts, it's just I didn't have any extra money for myself to save or to do whatever I wanted to do at that time. And it was tough. I know there's a lot of people who go through worse things, and I'm not saying this was even bad, but even at that time when I was going through that, it was nice to me to know that I was, like, if I fail, I'm gonna fail on my terms. It's gonna be my fault. I'd be more okay with that than, you know, failing because I followed somebody else's plan and their plan didn't work. But between then and now, you know, the business has picked up tremendously. This is my full-time thing. This is my career. It makes me a very comfortable living. And, you know, if you are close to me, if you know me in person, if you're my relatives, if you're my family, if you're anybody out there watching this that actually is legitimately concerned about me and my well-being, I'm not saying this to blow smoke up my own ass or to brag, but I promise you that right now I make way more money than I ever would have with a physio degree. But I just want to make it clear, you know, to those of you who care about me and who might be worried that I'm going to be living on the streets one day, you don't have to worry. And if you're thinking that, you know, there's no way this way of making a living is sustainable, there's been constant growth. Like every month, the business continues to grow. And it's, I mean, I track every income, every expense, like literally every penny. And I make sure that I am doing whatever I can to grow my business. Not only that, but, so I mean, the primary source of income right now is coaching. The secondary source would be like clothing and program sales, which you can check out down below if you want to. And then currently I'm working part-time, or like at least a good chunk of my time every week goes to working on a second business project that, if all goes to plan, should be a means for me to make, like, that business project will probably eclipse the amount of income that I have from coaching right now. And at some point I might devote maybe time half and half between the two. And that is entirely outside the realm of fitness. So if you're worried that, you know, making a living from coaching is not sustainable, I think you're wrong. But on the off chance that you're right, on the off chance that coaching is not a thing, you know, a year, 5 years from now, I'll be okay. This is only my second business project now, and I plan and I hope to expand to even more things down the line as well. And then also, you know, there's a charity that doesn't make me any money, but it is something that's very important to me, very meaningful, and something that I devote a lot of my time to. So my entire work week altogether between all these things is probably 70 to 80 hours on average. I'm probably getting about, you know, 5 to maybe 6 hours of sleep a night. Like, all in all, guys, I know that some people might worry about me no matter what. I know that some people might doubt me, whatever I do. But at the end of the day, what matters most to me is like my own perception of success and like how I feel about the way I'm doing it. Honestly, if you had told me, or if anybody had told me a year ago that I'd be where I am today, I would not have believed you. I would have liked to believe it, but I would not have believed it. And I'm very happy with my life the way it is right now. That's not to say that I'm not going to make progress, because you guys all know that that's my big thing, is constant progression in whatever I do. I always wanted to be better. In fact, on the inside of this watch, I'm going to make a video about this watch. I know it looks a little bit ostentatious probably, but on the inside of this watch, on the case, I've written something kind of silly, like a little note reminder to myself. Every time I take the watch off, every time I put it on, it reminds me to be better. And that sounds stupid, I know, but it's important to me. I wish I could have somebody else do this on the video, but I'm gonna try to objectively evaluate my life right now. I am 21 years old. I am a college dropout. I make a really comfortable living from an online business that is kind of encompasses my passion. I'm venturing out into other business projects as well. I co-founded a charity. I honestly feel like I'm doing really well for myself. And if somebody else thinks otherwise, fine. I mean, it doesn't really matter. What matters is how I feel about my life, and I love my life. To the people who have supported me at any point in my life, whether that be in bodybuilding, powerlifting, my parents, my entire life, my family, my best friend, all of my friends, my girlfriend Shauna, especially Shauna. She's been with me, and she has been my #1 supporter through all of this. And to all of you guys out there, my team especially, everybody who's ever been involved in the things that I do, I am eternally grateful for you, because like I said, I love my life, and my life will continue to improve as long as I'm willing to work for it, and I wouldn't have this opportunity without you guys. So thank you. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.